Hello and welcome to the 6 Months to Six Figures series of the Double Your Freelancing podcast. In this series, you'll follow a specific freelancer, in this case, Brad, and you'll follow him as I coach him from early stages of freelancing to earning a six-figure annual income. Broken down, 6 figures a year, $100,000 a year, is $8,333 a month. So my challenge with this series is to see how quickly I can get Brad earning $83.33 a month, with the goal being to get him there within 6 months. In the series, Brad and I will connect every week or two, and it'll follow basically the same format as the one-on-one live coaching that we do in the DYF Accelerator community, but with a slight difference for Brad, because Brad is a YouTube marketing expert, and he's actually been coaching me a bit about YouTube. And originally, we were going to separate that, but him coaching me has helped me hone his service offering. So probably we're going to keep some of the YouTube coaching there, and then maybe in later episodes we'll cut it. We'll see. But in any case, if you're listening to this and you're wishing to yourself, oh man, it'd be nice if I could get coaching like this from Zach, know that you can. And if you want that, you can join the DYF Accelerator, which you can learn more about at dyf.link/DYFA. So let's dive into today's interview. Hello, Brad. Something I was originally going to cut from the recording, but I think it's relevant because we're talking about it here. So you, Brad, know that I just had 2 different call to action links for joining the accelerator, but the listener only heard one. And I was about to explain off camera to you why I did this, but then I was like, oh, well, this is relevant to what we're talking about. So basically, if you and I are going to work together and you're going to help me strategically with YouTube, I'll want to know how many people join the accelerator thanks to watching things on YouTube, how many people join thanks to listening to things on the podcast. And what struck me is that if I use the same short link, I have no way of knowing. And so what I figured could be interesting is I created one that I'll use for anything I promote in a YouTube video, which I'm not going to say it right now because I don't want people on the other one to click it. I have one I'll say on YouTube videos and one I'll say on podcast episodes. And so my thought is that for any YouTube description, it would go to that YouTube one. Any YouTube words would go to the YouTube one, and then we can track attribution that way. I don't know if you think that this is too janky of a system or if you think it's perfectly fine.
I'm sure you would know the phenomenon that when you talk to business owners, you realize that they have no system at all. So a system is awesome.
All right, so I'll move forward with it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there may be a more elegant solution that I don't know for sure, which is you might be able to pass UTM parameters to a link shortener. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I would want to look into. And it would be also nice to be able to track which video they came from, but that seems like too much to ask for, especially for spoken word. But yeah. So for today's session, I mean, we've been going a bit long. You've been really generous with doing all the background for those of you listening. We just shot the intro for the whole series, so that took a long time. We went deep. So we don't have to talk about a lot of YouTube stuff today, just for time, but we can. But I guess let's just do the quick check-in, like between last week and now, what happened? If you give me a little bit of an update, what you're hoping to chat about today, that kind of thing.
I was sick, pretty sick actually. I basically was kind of out for a week, but in that time, I also lost my voice. So it was like a voice thing. But in that time, I did record an episode with you. And I also did find a day where I kind of started feeling better and I had a bit of a voice. And I used that time to reach out to do the Upwork system, really, which is essentially like being very selective about potential clients and sending them Loom videos. I found that if you don't send a Loom video, there's no use in sending it. That's the only way I've found clients, is sending them a Loom video where you go through their thing and say like, hey, you should whatever. So anyways, I did that. And in the same pattern that I've observed so far, it's been about a week. And then 2 of those people have reached back to me. They looked at my Loom videos. They liked it. They reached out to see if I'm a good fit. And one person said she really liked me, really liked my energy. She was just going to interview a couple more people. And then the other guy just reached out to me this morning and said that he's concerned about budget, but blah, 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 whatever. So 2 people have come back out of, I think, maybe 4 or 5 that I sent. So that was good. That was progress. Um,
And how many? So you sent 4 or 5. How long does each one take you between the selection process and the recording of the Loom video and whatever else goes into the outreach?
the selection process takes some time because I have to really look for a lot of yellow and red flags.
Hmm.
Um, too demanding, too I just know they're not going to be a good fit. So that takes probably the most time is just selecting which ones I want to spend my Upwork connects on, and then looking over their situation and seeing if I'm a good fit, whatever. But actually shooting the video is pretty fast. It's usually like 5 minutes.
How long
But
does it take for that initial selection process?
I have a pre-made like Alfred shortcut that takes me to a specific search that I've set up that only searches for certain keywords and excludes other keywords. So that sped things up a lot. It and there's usually a limit to how many jobs are actually a good fit for what I want to offer on Upwork. So I can usually get through the existing potential offers in about 30 to 60 minutes. And then I have to, I do a first pass of just saving them. And then I do another pass later that maybe takes like another 30 minutes of like,
Hmm.
do I actually want to work with this person? Like, they said some weird stuff. No, I'm going to unsave it. And whittling that down of maybe like 10 or 20 down to like 5 that I'll make a loom for. And then out of the 5, maybe 1 or maybe 2 will reach back. And out of those, the rate has probably been 60 or 70% will have converted into clients.
So I'm just writing this down. So the reason that I like this, the reason that this appeals to me so much, and I want to ask you your goal for today's session because I don't want to go into this rabbit hole, but like I recently just uploaded a lesson to W Freelancing Great, which I think I told you about. It's in there now if you want to look at it, where I talk about basically your time in the business, effective hourly rate, and calculating effective hourly rate and how to delegate based on that. But what I see here, and this is what gets me excited, is that even though Upwork is demonized, everyone says, I hate Upwork, I want to get off Upwork. What I think is cool is that like you can predictably get $50 an hour work on Upwork, and you can get it where you can spend time and use that time to get leads. And to me, that's the freelancer's superpower. When it's on Upwork, maybe it doesn't feel like it, or when it's cold outreach, maybe it doesn't feel like it. But to me, it really is a superpower to know I can spend 5 hours, 10 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. I can spend a certain amount of hours or a certain amount of dollars, and I will get a client. That's a superpower because the biggest scarcity thing as a freelancer is like that situation you get into where you don't have any clients in the books, you don't have any lined up, and you're like, where the fuck am I going to get them? In your case, it sounds like this is dependent on job posts going up, so there is a cap. You can only go through what's there. So there's a cap. But nonetheless, what's kind of cool about this is that as I look at this, it sounds like if you do 1 hour plus 30 minutes plus 5 minutes multiplied by 5, that essentially means that you spend 2 hours to get 1 client, right? Does that sound about right to you?
My brain checked out when you said the numbers, to be
All the
honest.
numbers. Okay. So let me just clarify all the numbers and I'll help you add them up. And the reason I want to do this is as an exercise because it may be that you can outsource some of this. But again, I don't want to take us down this route if that's not what we want to talk about. But you're saying you do 1 pass. And is this like every day that you would do this, by the way? This pass of new offers every week or?
Well, there's another cap to Upwork, which is you have to bid on, you essentially have to pay in these connects, and you have a limit. And I have their $15 a month upgraded thing, so I get more connects, but there's still a limit. So you can only bid on a certain amount of jobs. And there's another element where you bid to be higher up in the consideration. So I've been bidding to be number 1 just because I didn't use all my connects last month. So I was like, I might as well just go for the ones that I have energy for. Just try to be like number 1. So they'll at least maybe look at it.
And so you're saying that even if you gave Upwork $1 million, you can't buy 1 million connects, like they'll only let you buy a certain amount?
I don't know that to be true. They
Okay.
might let you buy as many as you want.
And so 1 connect equals 1 submitted bid. Yeah?
No. Every job has a different number for
Mm,
connects.
okay. So on average, how many
Um,
connects would you say you spend to bid on one to come up at the top?
to come up at the top on average is probably about 8 connects.
And then
Sometimes it's more.
how it's sometimes more, you said?
Hmm.
Okay, I'll just call it 10 then. Um,
Yeah, 10. 10 sounds good.
and then what are like if you wanted to, let's just suppose you wanted to bid on 20 jobs a month, just suppose, and you needed 200 connects. Like, do you know what that would cost off the top of your head?
No.
Okay. Hmm.
I spend $15 a month right now, and I think I get like 80 connects per month.
Okay. So then that means that we need to increase that by $3, right? So I think $18 would get you 100 connects if my mental math is not wrong. So that essentially means one project. So let's say you spent 18 for 100, assuming that was right. Then that means that since it costs 10 for one, that each job you bid on costs you $2, pretty much.
Sounds
Uh,
about right.
so $2 plus time. And so again, this is like a rabbit hole. This is in the DWF freelancing rate course, so I can just point you to that. We don't have to get into it today. But the reason I want to bring this up is that if each job costs you $2 to bid on, or each project costs you $2 to bid on, and on average, 5 bids results in one client, then what we know is that one client costs you $10 plus time. And you said that you have to first review all the offers that have been posted on Upwork. So let's suppose you could do this. What do you think is reasonable? Like, because I know Upwork, you're doing best if you respond within like a day or two. So that 30 to 60 minutes investment, like suppose you went on Upwork every 2 days and you crawled everything. Would there still be enough that it would be 30 to 60 minutes every 2 days? Or is it 30 to 60 minutes because you
Yeah.
haven't looked at them in like a week or something?
Mm, that's a good question. I think maybe 2 times a week, there would probably be enough. Like one toward the beginning of the week, one toward the end. Because I
Okay.
think some people upload their stuff on Monday, some people do it on Friday to be like, yeah, get rid of it.
Okay. And when you turn one of these average ones into a project, like what's the typical Upwork project? I know you do 50 an hour, but like what's it usually come out to in terms of dollars? Is it either in total or per month, if you were to just make a guess?
Um, per month on average, it's been about $200 between all the clients. Like some of them pay me $1,000. Like one pay me $1,000 in 1 month, and then other ones it's like it ends up being, yeah, 100, 200, $300.
But it's
So I'd say
typically
200.
ongoing.
Yeah, they usually hire me for an hourly contract right now, and I did just upgrade up my rate to $100 an hour, at least on my profile. So I'm already noticing some like agitation from the couple people that responded,
Hmm.
just like, "Oh, I don't know if I can afford this guy." Which we could talk about that. Like that's
Hmm.
very interesting to me. Um, I think it's good, but anyways, I did just up it on my profile. I'm not know how to handle like sticking to it because I kind of think actually whatever they say, I'm just going to ask them like, so what is your budget? And then whatever they say, I'll be like, for that I could do X, Y, and Z.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll get
Whatever
into
it
that.
is. Yeah,
But just to help me establish the baseline, because what I want to do is look
yeah.
at what revenue you could do right now. So one project on average is worth 200 a month, and they go on for many months. Usually, it sounds like. I mean, you haven't been doing it long enough to know, but most of them are doing ongoing work. Yeah.
Well, there seems to be excitement in the beginning, and now they're
Hmm.
all sort of dwindling and
Okay.
disappearing. And I definitely could use some advice on that.
Okay. So then, the exercise I wanted to do, I guess I won't worry too much about it today because I don't think it's necessarily relevant for you right now. But I want people to hear it, and I want you to hear it, and we'll dive in more. As I said, you can go to the DYFR course. Basically, here are the numbers that I know from talking to you. So one project is worth $200 a month. You can twice a week do your process that will result in one client. So this means you can get 2 clients per week with your existing process, which means you can get 8 clients a month. If each client is worth $200 a month, then this means that you can be building a $1,600 a month like recurring client revenue. That it won't recur forever. It sounds like people are churning after a couple of months due to dwindling excitement, which doesn't surprise me based on what I know about your service offering right now. But nonetheless, um, if you did your system twice a week, you could be earning 1,600 a month just from like new clients, not to mention your existing clients. So you could be building your recurring income by that much. And then if you subtract churn, maybe you're actually building your recurring income by 400 or 500 bucks a month, but that's still going up versus stagnating. And so what sticks out to me is that if a client is worth $200, so we have this 200 here, but it's worth more because it's for more than 1 month. And then we have to subtract 10 because we subtract $10 for the amount that you have to pay for those connects. And then we have to look at your time. So you skim the offers in 60 minutes plus 30. So you spend an hour and a half to find the good ones. And then you spend 30 minutes sending out 5 Loom videos. Does that sound right?
I'd bump that up to 60 because I need time to like think through each one and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what this says to me is that if we look at your time, so this essentially means that you spend 2.5 hours plus $10 to get 200 bucks. The thing that sticks out to me as an opportunity is the 1.5 hours that you spend on research. So if right now you are not doing this process very often because it takes so much time to do the research, you don't really have the time available. To me, it seems like if you already have a quantified process, that it sounds like you like go to your shortcut, which by the way, I don't even know what Alfred is. What is Alfred? I mean, this is a new question for me to ask. I use a Mac.
Oh my God. You are going to love Alfred. It is a replacement for the Spotlight tool that does a lot of magical things, especially if you know how to code a little bit. It is absolute magic. We can talk more about it. Holy cow. You are going to freaking love it.
What's the URL for it?
Just Alfred Mac should get you there. Yeah.
All right, I'll search it.
Alfredapp.com.
Okay. So the reason I mention all this is that if you have this like streamlined process where it's fairly systematized to kind of like pre-qualify potential clients and get you that short list, that's the exact sort of thing that you could delegate to a virtual assistant or administrative assistant to essentially win back a free 3 hours a week, right? Because if you want to do this process twice a week, that means you spend 3 hours a week doing that research. And that's 3 hours that you can't spend on other stuff. And so that's like for later, not for right now necessarily, but that would be a very, very good low-hanging fruit. And that you could even take it a bit further. Like when I think of what is Brad's secret sauce, and this is kind of the whole hook of what we've been talking about here, it's like, it's the strategy. I tried recently to hire an assistant to help me with this strategy stuff, and it made me appreciate just how hard this is. You need a lot of like marketing experience and a marketing mind to know what a good headline would be, what a good video would be. And that's the kind of thing that would be hard for you to pass off to an assistant. You know, the thing that you do in the Loom video where you look for the opportunities, I suspect that's pretty secret saucy. But the research of like, does potential clients say things that raise red flags? That seems like something you could make a checklist to give to DYF people or put in that course that you have or have a VA do. You could, in fact, have whatever training you would create for your virtual assistant be training that you could like let me sell or give to people for free as a lead. Like there are so many opportunities, but all of that aside, this is all tangential, but I just wanted to explore this with you because as you move forward, if you're like, I want to get you off Upwork, and I think that's where the biggest opportunity is for you. But given that you have a system that works, it's always wise to be thinking about, okay, how can I push this system to its like productivity limits and get the most out of it? So I think that's worth like just kind of flagging.
I've never done that in my life. Like that, the structure of coaching could be so useful just in that. Like, you're right. You just got something that I'm ready to abandon already. You know, I'm already like, I don't even want to look at Upwork. I don't want to think about it. Like, I don't want to work with my clients anymore. I want to jump into this new thing. But you're so right, because I do have this existential thing growing too, which is like, I didn't make any money when I was sick, and I have not been working a lot on my clients. I haven't been growing them. They're dwindling. So like, I'm feeling like, oh no, I'm not making enough money, you know, for real. So
then, yeah, I would say like,
you're so right.
When we think, okay, so let's prioritize this for today. Let's kind of pause on the choosing a niche stuff. And maybe for this couple weeks when I'm out of town, we say, okay, right now, Brad's got some hunches of what amount of time goes into a project, what amount of like research goes into something. What would it look like to formalize this and to like test the theories? And the reason the reason that I think this is interesting to consider is that, again, coming back to that thing I mentioned, I want to say mentioned earlier, but I guess for the listeners, it wasn't earlier because that I think was when we were shooting the intro for the whole series. So it was much earlier. Basically, dear listener, I was talking to Brad earlier about this like idea of using a freelance business to turn you into the type of person you need to be to run your dream business, and saying like, what practice can I do in my freelance business? What skills can I build that'll set me up for success later? And so me, Zach, knowing this now, like a big success for scaling a business, whether it's a content business like DYF, whether it's an agency, any kind of real business, it's not just a job you own. And it's especially helpful for me, even as a freelancer, because my memory sucks, is processes, SOPs. If I trust future Zach to remember what the hell he's supposed to do, my clients are all going to be upset because he's not going to remember. I ship so many freaking mistakes. So what I would love to see you do, Brad, is like, I listed out all these numbers and I can send them to you somehow. But what I would love to see is if you audit your own system for researching these clients and you ask yourself, like, what are the things that I would do if I were to distill this into a checklist? What would that checklist have? And is this something that I could realistically outsource to somebody who's just like a bit less skilled, who's not a marketer? You know, could I outsource this to a $10 or $20 an hour VA? Is it that easy? And maybe also stress testing. This is to say, if your belief now is you could do this process twice a week, and we've done this math now, and we see, okay, so if Brad does this twice a week and he invests essentially 2.5 hours twice a week, so 5 hours a week, he should be able to get 2 new clients a week. That's our theory, which is based on real experience. Maybe put it to the test. Maybe that would be worth pursuing, and track your time with it. Are you tracking the time you spend on this stuff right now?
One win that I had from last week is I did watch your time management or time tracking course or whatever. And so I got Toggle and I started, I almost quit a job because they were going to make me use Toggle many years ago, but, but now I'm ready for it. I'm like, oh, actually, I see how amazing this is. So I set it up the way that you told me to. And, so I have that tool in my toolkit.
Okay, cool. Now. So what I would say for this, if I were doing it myself, and this is what I do with things in DYF, I would set up one project in Toggle called like Upwork potential job researching, or something more succinct than that. So basically create one project in Toggle for the researching. So I'd do this. I would say marketing -Upwork -research. That's what I call the project. And then I create another project called marketing -Upwork Loom videos. And then maybe another one of like marketing -Upwork messaging. And I think that between those three, you can see how your time breaks down. But what I'm really curious to know is like, how much time do you actually spend on these videos? How much time do you actually spend on the research? How much time do you actually spend sending messages? And then we can pick apart the outsourcing thing if you want. But for me, like, I'm really curious to know how many leads we could get. And if you're feeling the squeeze and you're needing more business, like, number one, I want to hire you for some of the strategy stuff anyway. So we're going to talk about that. So there's some money, but I would really be interested to see if you can put these series to the test and generate the work. Like, are you willing to invest the 5 hours a week doing that?
Yes.
Okay. So then if you can write that down as a homework assignment, I'd love to see. And I kind of did the same thing with Maya, actually. So in your case, I mentioned I love when someone has a controllable marketing strategy. In Maya's case, she had Instagram. She knew that if she went on Instagram, did posts, she would get leads. And so I was like, all right, Maya, how about you just spend 5 hours a week doing Instagram and see what happens? Because she wanted more leads, but she wasn't really spending much time. And so similarly, I'm going to say, Brad, track your time, do your current system that's working twice a week, spend 5 hours a week and see what happens. And by the time we connect again, it'll have been a week and a half or 2 weeks or something. And so if the system works, you'll have some leads that are looking like they'll turn into clients. And you should, if all the theories are correct, you should have, I guess, you should have 4 people becoming clients, and you should have 8 interested leads. I think that's how it'll break down, right? Because yeah. So you spend 1.5 hours in research, 60 minutes on Loom videos, spend $10, and you get 5 potential clients. 1 or 2 of them reach back, 60 or 70% of them convert. Yeah. So you should have like 2 to 4 people who will become clients by the time we connect. So yeah, that sounds cool. You're down with that as a homework assignment?
Yeah, I'm I think that's awesome. I feel some relief because it's going to immediately work within the systems that I have for income.
Hmm.
And it's definitely anti my instincts, which is to jump into the next thing and forget
Yeah.
about this and then be struggling for money.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing I always remind myself with my ADHD is like, I can't do what I want. What I want is to follow novelty and follow excitement. I can't. It is it's not conducive to success. I need to instead stick with something that's working, see it through to completion, even though I don't want to, and even though it's boring and it's not sexy. Like that's just what I have to kind of force myself to do and try to. The only way I can power through it is by tying that to my broader vision, saying like, Zach, you saying yes to pursuing the shiny object is you saying no to reaching your goals. And is it worth it? If it is worth it, do it. If it's not worth it, don't. And that's, I guess, what I maybe might be helpful for you here is like in whatever gentle way works for you so that it's not, because like I know, at least internally, I don't respond so well to stick. They say that psychologically people respond better to stick than carrot, but I know that yeah, like if I'm trying to self motivate, I gotta find some way to find the joy and value in it now. Like with my diet, for example, I've been doing really well. I'm like 4 months sugar sobriety now. And the only way I can do that is by finding ways in the present moment that heeding that protocol is more rewarding than eating a delicious pizza or ice cream or whatever. And if I try to say, Zach, you got to do this because it's going to fuck you up if you don't, like, it just doesn't work quite as much.
Yeah.
So maybe every time you invest it, you look at, again, like, you don't look at it as a hamster wheel. You don't look at it as you saying, this is what I got to do forever. Every time I go on Upwork and find clients, this is my life forever now. Instead, it's saying, this is me investing into building a lead generation system and finding ways to like learn about how to spend money and spend time to get a result and learn as an experiment how to hire somebody my first time, how to create SOPs my first time. This is all, it's like yoga. You know, you go to yoga, it's practice. Everything is always practice. There's no yoga, you've arrived. It's all a practice. So maybe that's how you look at it, as like marketing practice, scaling practice.
Love that.
I wonder if they're like, yeah, I guess before we go, let's ask, like, is there anything else you want to connect on to prep you? We can talk about some of the video stuff because I'd like your help on that. But in terms of Zach coaching Brad to get Brad set up for success, challenges you've been running into, stuff to set you up for the next week and a half or 2 weeks, like, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I had two things I really wanted to talk to you about on this call. I'll try to
Okay.
be really quick on them. One, which kind of maybe is tabled a little bit, is I think I've refined a really amazing positioning for this offer that we're like co-crafting here.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it with Alex Hermosi's $100 million offers, and it's like, what's an offer so good that they'd be stupid saying no to? And that includes the quick wins thing that I mentioned. But basically, it's either authority or thought leadership. That's what I'm at. That's what I can actually provide, because
Mm-hmm.
it's not even YouTube. It's like I have this whole strategy. Like I'm like, if you make these videos about these keywords, that'll give us a nice baseline that's likely to convert, and then we move into viral hooks, and we do like, and it could be like every month we like work on a separate kind of idea toward that, like become a thought leader in your
Mm-hmm.
niche. Thought leader also speaks to like a high dollar amount. So I was thinking it's like thought leadership on command or thought leadership as a service, and then if I went more towards like course creators and affiliate marketers, they call it authority. They don't really think about thought leadership. So then I was like authority on command or authority, you know, become an authority in 90 days, whatever. It's like, it's about, because Alex Hormozi is like, people don't want to lose weight. They don't want to be on a diet. They want a transformation. Like, what does this person actually want? They want to be like, you want to be like the freelancing guy. And I'm confident I can make you the freelancing guy. I don't know if that's making YouTube shorts or if it's Facebook reels or whatever. Like, I have all these tools in my toolkit, and that's what the YouTube thing is leading to. The first thing that people want is leads and sales. Yeah, but I think ultimately they want, I don't know. So I had this like huge thing, and I was like, that's amazing. That's something you can charge like $5,000, $10,000 for, or like $3,000 a month. And it's ongoing. And it's like every month we're going to be working on something different, but it's all leading towards this big, beautiful goal. So I was like really excited about that because I think it makes everything click into place. and including the quick win that I was like, I don't think there's a quick win with this because like video takes time to whatever. And then I'm like, well, if they really want leads and sales, the fastest win that I know is paid ads. And I was at some point going to ask you like, why don't you guys run ads? And then I thought, wait a second, in the Alex Hormozy like mindset, he has this thing of like, well, what if I text you a list of items while you're at the store that you can just you know exactly what to buy, or like, how about I go to the store with you for another 10,000 or whatever. I was like, what if I just run the ads for you? Like, I charge somebody $5,000, $10,000, and they don't have to think about it or worry about it. But from somewhere, leads, or maybe not even leads, just stuff is going to start happening on day one. Like, they're going to start seeing views on their videos, or visitors to their website, or leads, or sales, or all of the above, because I'm going to run ads. And I'm actually better at running ads than like everything. So I just like, this is so cool. This is a kind of like what I would like to build into as this service. The other thing that I'll mention, and then I'll let you talk about those things, is I did my first podcast on Friday. It's not strictly a Trojan horse, but I loved getting the mechanism going for a lot of reasons. Like, podcasting is like amazing to me. I'm figuring out how to do it. I did it with Dominic Kent, who is the author of a book called The Autonomous Freelancer. So it's kind of anti some of your coaching earlier, but not, but it just was the first person who said yes. And it was on a tweet that I put out about freelancing books. And it was amazing. I loved it. It was so cool. He immediately sent me to a couple other people I should interview. The interviewing mechanism is 100 out of 100 for me. I'm going to do it because I see it's increasing the service area of luck. I know there's a lot of things that are magical things that are going to happen, just like me joining your community. Cool stuff is going to happen. I hope some of it is Trojan horse where they turn into clients. I did offer, as you suggested, like, you know, Dominic is a creator. So I said, you know, I'd be glad to look at your YouTube and do it. And he's like, well, it's not a big priority for me, but I'll keep that in mind. I was like, sweet. You know, somebody, not necessarily these freelancer guys, but they run businesses, they know people, like, and I'm going to use that mechanism to try to do more Trojan horsey stuff. But anyways, I just want to say I did my first podcast. I loved it. I'm like, I would like to have a podcast like daily, actually, on my books, whether it's 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 120. The mechanism, that's very hard for a lot of people. It's not hard for me, and I love it. So
That's great.
those
And I
are
know
the two things I wanted to share with you.
I know that a lot of people in the community have been wanting to hear stories of people getting their first Trojan horse interview. And I think this one's so awesome. Like, it wasn't a direct Trojan horse, but it kind of was, because this dude is still a potential client since he's like a thought leader. And if he were to care about YouTube, he would have been a good client. And frankly, as you hone your service offering around ads for lead generation stuff, he might indeed be one. But what's so funny is, like, in the span of a week, you have successfully done what many of the people in the community have struggled with for many months. So the thing that I think is really cool about your strategy here that I would love to get your take on, to just distill into something I can share this recording of with people in the community, is how it broke down. So as I recall, you did some just post on Twitter where you were like, hey, what are your favorite freelancing books, peeps? And then people responded, and then authors chimed in. So can you just tell me your strategy succinctly so anyone listening is like, so he did this, and then tell me how you booked the interviews from there.
Yeah, there was very little strategy to it. I just want to, I learn things by immersing. So I'm going to read all the freelancing books I can. I joined your community. I just want to like live and breathe freelancing for a while so it can seep into my bones. So one part of that was I joined a writing group a while ago, and I have about 150 followers on Twitter, whatever, very small. But some of the people that I met, they're like, they run client agencies, whatever. So I just said, hey, there are a lot of freelancers. So I said, what are your favorite freelancing books? This tweet very quickly got like a couple thousand impressions to strangers. And what was cool was they were mentioning books that they like. People were mentioning freelancing books they like, but then they would tag the author, and then the author would come in and say, oh, thanks for recommending it. And so it was like bait to bring great podcast guests, because I was like, hey, I'm starting this podcast. You want to be on it? And something you mentioned a long time ago is when people go to my YouTube channel, I have almost 10,000 subscribers. So it's like, well, he's doing something. It might
Yeah.
not be a perfect match for my book or my audience or whatever, but like he's done something.
Yeah. And
So that's all I did. I just said, hey, oh, and I used your terminology from Trojan Horse, which is I'm starting a series on freelancing experts. That series thing, it's beautiful. It's so good because it's like you can turn it into something that is relevant to exactly their thing.
yeah. Yeah. And
So, yeah.
Ilya from the community had success with something similar. I was chatting with him about it recently. He did something on LinkedIn where very similar. He said like he works in the geospatial satellite data niche, very specific niche. And he basically did a post that was like, who are your favorite thought leaders, influencers in the space? And he listed off some of his, people listed off theirs. His got like 3,000 impressions. Again, it was a very good source for him to start having conversations with these people. Um, so you said that you basically just like DM'd these people and you're like, hey, I'm starting this series. You want to chat? And you just did this, and some said yes.
Yeah, I reached out to all of the authors that were mentioned. I also bought their book. I said, "Hey, I just bought your book. I'm excited to read it. By the way, I'm starting a podcast series about freelance experts. If you'd be interested, let me know." Um, and then I sent a link. I think with a couple of them, I sent a link to my YouTube channel and my blog just to be like, "Here's what I do" or whatever. Not very relevant to what they're doing necessarily, except for the fact that I have Nomad and there's a lot of Nomad freelancers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I actually have another one on the books for a week from now. Another
Cool.
author of a freelancing book. Um, I think his name is Andy Stroked, but his book was recommended, so I bought his book. I read Dominic's book before the interview. Made sure to like take notes and everything. But that's all. That's for me. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like a bliss engine,
Yeah. Yeah.
for me.
And what's really cool to me is that as you home in on who your target customer is, like suppose you decide it's course creators in the WordPress space because you have a past client and friend there, like these interviews that you did with the freelancer experts, like they're still relevant, like even though they're not the exact person, like it's still relevant enough that if the WordPress course creator looked at that and looked at the fact that you talked to these people about running their online business, teach them about these things, like it still substantiates your reputation. And that's what's pretty cool and powerful about it. So one note, like regarding your thing about authority and thought leadership, one thing maybe to consider is that if you were to come to me and say, Zach, I'm going to make you an authority, and I'm going to charge you $10,000 for that. At least for me personally, I might not find that very sexy compared to saying like, Zach, my goal with my business is to make you an authority, but what goes into that is that I generate you all these leads that are going to make you $20,000. I'm going to charge you $10,000 for that. So like if you say that your core why is making someone an authority, but the core what is like the leads or the revenue, I think that makes the money pill easier to swallow. I think if it's just the authority alone, that might be potentially a harder sell.
That's yeah. I definitely realized that without a lot of credibility and case studies and all that stuff, that is going to fall flat. You got to be able to back that up. And you just beautifully illustrated a shorter path to that, which is just explain what the what is.
Yeah. And I
What
think
does
it's just
authority
because,
mean? It means
yeah,
traffic, leads, sales, subscribers, whatever you're looking for.
yeah. Yeah, because I think if you just say authority, if you just say thought leader, like it leaves it to the person to define it and to like add value to it. Like to me, DYF already is an authority. DYF already is a thought leader. The company's been around for a million years. We have plenty of authority. What we need is like systematically generated leads, a good course catalog, like all the things I'm working on building. So I would want to hear something about the specifics versus the kind of vague things.
It's great feedback. I realize this isn't ready for like right now, but I think down the road, I want to build up to it. Like I think that's it's like it transcends like being an ad manager or being an SEO
Yeah.
person or doing a YouTube, service. Um, and actually plays on all of my skills that I've accumulated over the years.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I can run some Facebook ads if it calls for it. I can do
Yeah.
Pinterest if it calls for it.
Yeah, and that's like that commodity consultant thing. Like I picture it right now, going to your website, your homepage, the big ass headline on the first panel says like, I turn you into the number one authority in your niche. And that's like
Ooh,
mic drop. That's what you do. And then the how is like all the things that you do, the ads management, the videos, the shorts, the everything to get them there. But when I think that the biggest thing is like, so that's the end result. That's the vague, fluffy what you do. And I think that is nice. It's really nice to connect with that why, especially if you get more, like, I think where you're going to really love your work is if you get more into the who you serve. Like, it's not just I turn any old person into this. It's I only want to do this for the people who are like really bringing good to the world or whatever your thing is, and you can define that too, and that's who you do it for. But that's again, that's the future step. Um, so for today, is there anything else you want to run by me in this session?
I did want to talk to you about that downshifting of pricing thing for Upwork specifically, because I just upped my rate to 100 a month, 100 per hour, at least on the front end. So far, I've mostly gotten $50 an hour, but one client talked me down to 40. So yeah, I think there's going to be some friction with the people I'm attracting currently of like, oh, I don't know, what are you going to do if I pay you for 5 hours? That's $500. What is that? So how do
Yeah.
I think through that?
So I think that that's where getting a honed service offering, that's the answer to. So for example, what you and I were chatting about privately, like what I'm trying to get from you is like I can pay Brad a certain amount of money to get a very specific end result. And so in this case, I would love to pay you to have you go do your SEO research and all the magic stuff and come back to me, like I said in the chat, come back to me with a list of videos I need to make and what those videos need to be about. Because then I know what I'm getting for the money, and that is something that's valuable to me. It's moving a little bit from the commodity into the consultant, because the commodity is the editing of the videos. That's the commodity work. The consultant is the strategy. The more you move from the implementation and into the strategy, the more you can charge for your time. But at the end of the day, like to me at least, it would be hard for me to think it's worth it to pay someone $100 an hour to edit videos. Like if that's what I'm paying for, I don't know why I would do that. Like why should I pay 100 an hour for editing videos when I could pay somebody else less? Uh, and that's probably a hard one to answer because, like you say, well, I do a better job. It looks pretty. You don't have to manage me so much. Whatever. That's where it becomes harder to answer. But whereas when you get more in the closer to the money stuff or the strategic stuff, it's like, well, for any amount of money, I can't really very easily, because I tried, have any commodity worker make me a list of videos I should create because they'll just make me a list of videos that aren't very good. Like I shouldn't create those. They're not strategically wise. So I think if you're tight on cash, like I don't know, man. If most of your clients are having you do commodity work, and it just so happens that they're happy to pay you for it, you're doing the commodity work, but you're doing it at 50 an hour, which is very like it's good money for commodity work. Um, I don't see a reason to raise this work price to 100 an hour.
Interesting. Okay.
And I would be more inclined to say, okay, how can you say we've got this? This is kind of what I talked about with Maya. Like in my opinion, the best way to raise rates is to do it when you have too much work and you use it as like a counterbalance for supply and demand. So if you spend the 5 hours a week I'm challenging you to spend, and you do this for the next 2 weeks, and you generate 4 new clients, I don't know. So if each client's worth $200 a month, like that's only 4 hours of work a month, right? So if you generate 4 new clients, you essentially generate 16 hours of work for yourself a month. And if you want to be doing 20 hours of client work a week, then that essentially means, and I don't know what you want to do each week. Let's do a thought exercise. So 20 hours of client work a week at $50 an hour is $1,000 a week. So 20 hours of client work a week is $4,000 a month, working part-time plus lead gen time. So what is your monthly nut? What do you want to be making a month just to get the bills paid and not starve and stuff?
Not starve currently, because I don't live anywhere, is like just bare minimum needs to be like 3,000 a month. My four would be like obviously better. I think I start living a real life at about 5,
Okay.
and I would like to get to 8,333.
Okay, then so let's set the initial target at 4. So if you say $4,000 a month, what goes into that? So $4,000 a month. I'm going to just pull up my calculator. 4,000 divided by 50 equals 80 hours. Divided by 4 weeks equals 20 hours a week. So if you want 20 hours a week, and each client right now, you said $200 a month, so that amounts to 4 hours, yeah? So if you want 20 hours a week, 20 hours a week, one client equals 4 hours, you need 5 clients a week, aka 20 clients a month. That's like kind of what it adds up to. Your current strategy, if the theories are correct, could produce for you 2 clients a week, yeah? Because I think we said all that time to talk to the 5 leads results in 1 client. So you could produce 2 clients a week, and then they do ongoing work. So if you were to execute on this strategy at your $50 an hour rate, and supposing no one ever churned, which they do, you would be at your $4,000 a month within 2 months. But you have ongoing client work, and that takes time. And you have your off Upwork work, and that takes time. So it won't actually take that long. But I would say, again, just to me, given that doubling your rates, like that's a significant, huge change. If I double the price for our courses, like we get way less sales. Doubling is always a big change, especially if you haven't changed the core offering. If I double the price of our course, but I add a bunch of new stuff, that's different. If I double the price of course, add a bunch of new other courses or whatever, it's different. But if I just say, hey, it's the exact same course, but now it costs twice as much, it's useful to promote the course before I raise the price. As you know, I can say, hey, get it now before I raise the price. But now it's gonna be harder to sell in the future because you cannibalize the future sales. And so in this case, what I would be interested to see is like, what if you just 50 an hour, do the same thing, do it for 2 or 3 weeks. So remember, we don't have to rush. We can go a little bit slow and then see if you are generating a good amount of leads. And then we say, okay, now we're starting to get to the point where Brad's running out of time. And again, you're doing the time tracking now. So I really need you tracking all of the time you spend in your business. I want to know how much time you're spending on client work. I want to know how much time you're spending prospecting. I want to know how much time you're spending on emails. And this is like so important because we're going to use it in 2 or 3 weeks. And then, so suppose you do that, you move forward and you're like, okay, now I'm feeling the burn. I've either got to cut client work or I've got to cut prospecting or I've got to cut learning. I have to cut something. That's when we modify. And so at that point, like if our target, again, I want your buy-in, are you down to do 20 hours of $50 an hour work per week?
Yes.
Okay. And then we'll raise that rate later and we can lower the hours later and raise the rates. But for now, the target is I want to get Brad working 20 hours a week on $50 an hour work. Be careful not to do 30 hours a week because it's a temptation, especially when you're skint, to take on as much as you can. Do 30, 40 hours a week, but that's what creates the roller coaster. So I would like, if possible, for you to be balanced and cap yourself. Say to yourself, Brad, you are not going to work more than 20 hours a week on client work because you need to work on the business to not have a roller coaster. And so all that said, let's suppose you are working 20 hours a week on client work and you're still doing your prospecting and you've still got leads coming up. And now you're starting to build a wait list and a queue where it's like, hey, I've got time to work with you in August or late August, September, and you get like a 1 month queue. That's when you raise your rates because now you can say, okay, moving forward, it's 70 an hour and you keep doing everything the same way, except now it's 70 an hour. And if that queue goes from 1 month in advance and it's starting to get reduced, now you're only booked 3 weeks in advance, 2 weeks in advance. Oh shit, it's not working. We need to change the rates. Then you can go back to 50 and you know it'll work because you already tested it. And then if you do the 70 and it's not affecting your lead flow at all, and you're getting just as many and you're still booked out, you're like, okay, well, I guess it's time to try 100. I guess it's time to try 125, 150, whatever it is. But you're doing it from that point of leverage versus just like throwing a dart and hoping it works. And frankly, by the time you hit that milestone, like we're looking at like a month out or 2 months out now. You and I will continue to talk and hone your service offering that it's more productized, where you can say, you pay me this stack of cash for this specific thing. And that's where your rates can really start to climb. So yeah, so to me, I guess this is the theme of today's chat, right? Do the thing that's already working. Don't totally reinvent the wheel, and then we'll make some gradual tweaks if it sounds good to you.
It sounds very good. Now I just have to get myself to do it.
So you don't feel bad about the idea of putting your rates from 100 to 50?
No.
Okay.
No, it feels like that it feels like 50 was a rate that a lot of people were like, nah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think 50 is good because it's not nothing, but it's also not crazy high. Like it's okay
Yeah.
for everyone.
Currently, if I work like 2 hours a day, I mean, I do all right. Like when I was living in Colombia, for example. But I also did observe a phenomenon. Maybe you have a quick thing about it. It's just like 2 hours of billable work felt like 6 hours. So
Are you
I don't
medicated?
know. No, I'm not.
That's why. If you get some ADHD meds, oof, you can just slide on through the boring shit. But yeah. So I lived for a while in Tbilisi, and in Tbilisi, you cannot get stimulant medication because it's just like straight up illegal in Georgia. And I was medicated in high school, and then I got older, and like when you're in high school and you get medicated, you never made the choice. Your parents made it for you, pretty much.
Mm.
And so as an adult, I was like, okay, I want to live my life without medication. I want to see if I can do it. And so I like did crazy dietary modifications. I like cut carbs, cut anything I'm a little bit sensitive to, and I can kind of manage my ADHD without medication. Um, and when I was in Tbilisi, I had to because I couldn't really get the meds. Uh, and stimulant medication does have long-term issues, like it raises your heart rate, it might lower your life expectancy, or whatever. But the fact is, when I'm not on my meds, I'm so much more likely get run over by a car or something, or like just make some accidental mistake because I'm clumsy as fuck that'll result in me getting killed. And for me, procrastinating on repetitive work is the thing that is my killer. And the only really, really, really effective strategy that I've ever found is being on stimulant medication. So I don't know, like have you explored it before and you don't want to do it, or what's your headspace around that? Like,
Mm, I don't know. I've
I
I've
see
been
some reluctance in your face.
yeah. I'm open to it, kind of, but I would prefer. I've spent the last year. I didn't. I was undiagnosed until about a year ago. I had no idea whatsoever that it's been running my whole life. So I'm still working through it with just learning about it and yeah, seeing how it affects my daily life, my career, all that stuff. I definitely feel it in this work because you have to make a lot of commitments and you have to manage time
Yeah.
and you have to do repetitive work and get yourself to do it. Like
Yeah.
it's fun and exciting for me to get to think about getting new stuff, but to service the existing clients, I'm like, ah.
Yeah.
So
And
it's something to consider for sure.
in any business you ever run, even a passive income business, even a business like DYF, even an education business, product based business, whatever, there's always going to be boring work, always. And I think it is with my ADHD a great motivator for me to say what's boring work to me, because boring work is usually outsourceable work. If it's boring, it's because I've already mentally made an SOP that I now have to follow. And so maybe now I just make an actual SOP. But but the thing is, you got to pave that trail yourself. You got to do the thing. And back in the day when I would have to do like website updates for a client, that was my trigger. Or nowadays it would be video editing if I was doing my video editing. Those are my triggers where I'm like, gosh, I don't want to edit a video that I already was in. I already said all the stuff. I already know what's going to happen. I don't want to edit that. It's so boring. So I just never do it. And I would spend like 6 hours procrastinating and elongating a 2 hour task such that it would take all day. And when I do my crazy dietary management stuff, like basically when I would be on carnivore, for example, eat no carbs of any kind, just like animal based stuff. I could manage my ADHD better because carbs and food sensitivities like to gluten and FODMAPs tend to trigger my ADHD brain fog more. Certainly, high carb things like sugar stuff does, but interestingly, not white rice. And white rice is like a pure carb. So I think some of it has to do with sensitivities. But in any case, with diet and exercise and like mindfulness meditation doesn't really work so well for me here, but it does for others. Like I can kind of manage it, but it's just like way easier with stimulants. And I think the biggest objection I see to stimulants is usually feeling like you'll become a different person, things like that. That's what I see a lot. But most people with ADHD, like Ellie in the community, when he first met me, he had just gotten his diagnosis and just found a medicine that worked for him, which for him it was Vyvanse. He tried methylphenidate, which is what I'm on, which is like Ritalin, Concerta, etc., and he didn't like it. And I think he tried Adderall and didn't like it. Like gave him some bruxism and some anxiety and stuff. But if you find a stimulant that works, what happens is like, for me, it takes my brain from being all over the place into like segmented, compartmentalized things, and it's like the little inner 5-year-old that I'm always having to battle with when it comes to doing boring work or doing the things that involve delayed gratification, that inner 5-year-old has a little bit less sway. Whereas when I start my day with sugar and I don't take my meds, I am that inner 5-year-old. And I will not do the hard, boring stuff that needs to be done. And if I manage to do it, it's only at the back of like a hard won, fought tooth and nail for every inch kind of fight. So I don't want to push you to do something you don't want to do, but what I found these days that works well for me, like when I was younger and I was eating like shit in high school, I was on the maximum dose of Concerta. My heart rate was crazy high. I was broke at the time, so I'd go in college and like donate plasma to make an easy $30 or whatever. And when I would try to do that, like they wouldn't let me because my heart rate would be beyond their limit. They're like, it would be, I think they'd make me sit in the lobby, try to meditate to get my heart down below 120 BPM so that I could donate my plasma, because I'd go in and be like 140 just resting heart rate. And I know that resting heart rate is correlated with like longevity and health and stuff. But these days, because my diet's under control and I try to do proactive exercise. I've been not as good lately, but because I'm doing the kind of fundamental things that affect my ADHD and then I'm layering medication on top of it, I'm on a very, very, very small dose of a medication that they would normally give to kids. And it's just that minimum effective dose to get me where I need to be. So, yeah, I won't harp on it. I don't want to push you because it's personal choice, but if you want to chat about it, we totally can. And so if you're not going to do it, I think the thing for you to ask yourself is like, when in the day is that 5-year-old the least powerful? Because that's when you're going to have to do the boring work. Like what things can you do to affect it? Is it exercise? Is it diet? What are the things that really allow you to affect your ADHD? Because you're going to have to do those things. And if you don't take medication, it's imperative. You can't not do those things and run a freelance business. So that'll be something to keep in your mind as you're doing this. And it's going to apply for that 5 hours a week of prospecting too. At least for me, if I were trying to do the 5 hours a week of prospecting that I'm telling you to do, my ADHD brain would not want to, because that sounds freaking boring. And it's like the opposite of instant gratification. So if you notice yourself running into that, be thinking about that, and we can chat about that next time, like what we can do to help make that work easier for you to do. I know I went on a little ADHD tangent there. But yeah, so I guess you'll explore this stuff. We'll report back. How are you feeling after this one? Is there anything I poo-pooed that you didn't like poo-pooed? How are you? What's your heart saying?
Um, yeah, I like the theme of like think about this long term, extend the time horizon a bit, work on what's working, get that rocking and rolling, and then transition. Um, it's I think it's right, and it makes me relax a little bit about all the other emotional things I was feeling about this whole experience of like being coached and stuff. That's, I think the coaching brings up like, I'm going to screw this up. And that's
Mm.
very common for ADHD, is like,
Rejection sensitive dysphoria.
yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
So I feel less of that when you extend the time horizon, or help me to extend the time horizon in my mind. Is like, okay, it's fine. A couple months of Upwork is okay. You don't need to
Yeah.
jump ship right away. It's actually started working. It's actually working.
Yeah.
And for a few weeks, I was living in that. I was like, wow, this is awesome. If I just keep growing this a little bit, the money's pretty good for where I'm at right now. Like, but then I'm like, oh yeah, that's the battle I need to win this week, is like get myself to sit down, turn on Toggle, and like the Upwork time tracker helps with that. As soon as I turn that thing on, it's like, okay, no ADHD allowed.
Yeah. And do you use Brain
but
FM, by the way?
I've never heard of it.
So there's a tool called Brain.fm that was created by a company that basically, as I understand it, they are a research company. And their whole thing is like they want to try to find solutions for ADHD that are non-medication driven. And so it's kind of like binaural beats, but not. It's different. But if you go Brain.fm, I did a sneaky thing where I bought like a lifetime license on eBay or something, but it's cheeky behind the scenes. But you can like just go them, buy the thing, take the thing, but it works really, really well. So something that'll work well for me for powering through this kind of stuff is I'll turn on Brain FM, have it in my headphones, and it does its magic, and it does work. And then I'll put a focus timer for 50 minutes, like 50. And then you can compartmentalize things where I say, okay, today I just need to do two focused timers focused on Upwork. Maybe that if you notice that starting toggle helps, maybe layering these things will help a lot too.
That's awesome. Um, I was also going to ask if you could just give me like a deadline for something because I think I'm hesitant about that. That's actually like a really vulnerable thing to ask for a deadline for something. That's like really scary to me. But I was thinking, like, yeah.
Okay, well, here are some deadlines for you.
Deadlines.
When did you last do your Upwork prospecting strategy?
I
You
think,
don't have to think too hard. Like, was it more than
yeah,
two
I think
days
it was
ago?
last
My
week.
question. Okay,
Yeah,
and it's morning. You're in the U.S. now, yeah?
yeah.
Okay, so here's one deadline. Today, spend 3 50-minute focus sessions if you want, or just 2.5 hours, whatever it breaks down to. But today, do your whole process of your Upwork outreach. That end of the deadline is today. And then do that again at the end of the week, and then do that again at the middle of next week. Those are your KPIs, is do this process, and don't let yourself not do it. Because I think of all the things we've talked about, the most important thing to validate right now is like, what does one client cost you in terms of time and dollars? How can you predictably get more?
Okay. Perfect.
All right, deadline's complete. But if you don't reach them, you're not going to disappoint me. You're not going to get fired as a client. Like, everything's going to be fine. You'll just have to try again next week. It's not about hitting all these milestones. It's just about continually trying. But if you want your deadlines, there they are.
Thank you.
Sure. All right. So then we'll connect soon. And I guess we'll chat later on the video stuff because I got to start packing for my trip and whatnot. But yeah, if you can, I guess we can chat for a second. Like, I already told you what I want, which is like pay you or not. Like, if you want to do it pro bono, fine, or do a performance based, fine. But get a list that's research based of like video titles to make. So yeah, maybe we talk about it next, because at this point, if you got me the list, I'm leaving tomorrow, so it doesn't matter. So let's just, I guess you can hone your thoughts, do the homework, and then when I'm back from my holiday, we can talk about that a bit more.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Anything else before we go?
No, this
All
is
right, then.
awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. I'll do my little sign off now. So for you, the listener, if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, leave good reviews, things like that. And as a reminder, if you join the DYF Accelerator, your membership includes access to one-on-one office hours, live coaching with me, just like this session, although not as long because this session was bloody long. But you can book a 20-minute live coaching session with me each week. You also get recordings to all the past office hours, masterminds, and other community events. So if you're thinking of joining, now's the time to join. We'll be capping the community at 200 members so that everyone can get like one-on-one attention. So if you want to learn more, you can do that at dyf.link/DYFA. And if you want to learn more about Brad's business, where can they check you out, Brad?
The Nomad Brad.
The Nomad Brad on where?
TheNomadBrad.com and YouTube and Twitter.
And you're the Nomad Brad everywhere.
Yes, there are other Nomad Brads.
But if I search the Nomad Brad on Twitter, it'll be you, or at least if it looks like you.
Yes, the Nomad Brad is me.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for being here, everyone. Thanks for being here, Brad, and see you in the next episode.